Hello and welcome to Ask the Coach. This is our 56th version of Ask the Coach, which just getting to ridiculous numbers now. But we do this every 2 weeks. We're here to answer your questions that we gather up during those 2 weeks. If you have any more that you would like to ask us, feel free to put those in the chat or into the Ask the Question bit. If you are in Crowdcast, I'm Angela Cripps, the MD of the Recruiting Gym. I'm going to get the coaches to introduce themselves in a moment. But let me explain how this works. We have 6 already pre-asked questions. You get to vote on those. This runs for 45 minutes. If you can't be here the whole time, then vote on your question that you want to hear first, and we'll do them in the order that you guys end up with. If you're not bothered, don't vote. That's fine. And we'll just run through them if you can join us for the whole lot. While you're doing that voting, I'll go and get the intros from the coaches. So let's start with Lauren. Lauren Chiren, if you'd like to introduce people and tell them what you do.
Hi, I am the mum of one teenager currently doing GCSEs, and in the rest of my time I educate organisations with my colleagues on becoming menopause and menstruation savvy and supportive. We train menopause champions, menopause coaches, we do line management training, and basically I just want to make sure that everyone understands what everything is from menstruation all the way through to menopause, so that it doesn't stumble or cause any of us to trip up and leave our jobs thinking that we can't manage because of them.
Oh, I would have loved that when I was 12, 13 years old. And then again at 50, hello, all those years later, still didn't know what was going to be happening to me. So we'll be getting into all that. Okay, let's go to James next. So James.
Yes, back once again like a renegade master, you know. I
James was here yesterday morning.
Yeah, exactly. I was here yesterday morning, and I think this is my 3rd go on Ask the Coach. I think now, yeah, exactly. So my name is James Whitelock. I'm a managing director of Thinking Circles. We're a marketing agency specific to the recruitment and HR space. So we work with all kinds of recruitment agencies and people who want to, and businesses that want to get into that space, usually HR tech. I think we do a great job. I think our clients think we do a great job. If you want to know more, just ask. But yeah, it's great to be back.
Fantastic. We've got the links for everyone in there too, if you do want to find out more from the coaches. As we go through things as well, we'll add those into the resources. Click the green button, that gives you the previous sessions with all the links and the questions and everything there. So it's a great resource and that's free for everyone. So we're now coming to our mental health and wellbeing coach in the Recruiting Gym, the wonderful Clare Davis.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Angela. Thank you. I don't know how many Ask Coaches I've done. So
6 or 7, I think it is.
Yeah, loads and loads and loads. So I'm very, very privileged to have been working with Angela since pre-lockdown and got to know you really well during lockdown, because I'm the mental health coach for the Recruiting Gym, and I've been working in the recruitment industry for nearly 25 years. Just over 25 years, I think. And I was one of those managers who burnt out. And so I'm really, really passionate about helping people in the recruitment industry not to burn out, not to feel like they can't talk about when they're struggling emotionally, and to feel like they can talk about their personal life as well as work life. It's not just about targets.
We're going to get quite personal today then, aren't we, by the sound of it? And not surprisingly then, in recruitment, the billing manager is one of your fortes, isn't it? Because, toughest job in recruitment.
Yes.
We're here to help and support with that. Wonderful. Let's crack into the questions then. So first one that's coming up, let's go with number 1. Let's do that in order. How do I know if I'm getting a return on my marketing? So we're coming to you on this one, James.
Oh yeah, so it's a question we get asked a lot, right? It's the one question we usually get asked when we're kind of we're trying to bring on a new client, is how do I know I'm going to get return from this? And it's never kind of a one size fits all kind of situation. You've really got to have a think about what you actually want to achieve from a business, but also from a marketing perspective. Is this more clients? Is this more candidates? Is this more staff? Is this brand awareness? and then how do we then go about measuring that? Brand awareness is a bit easier because you know what kind of engagement is kind of going on online. So a lot of the times we get people ask us, well, we've got 5,000 people following us on our LinkedIn page and we want 15,000. Well, it's pretty easy to kind of measure if that's going in the right direction. I would argue maybe that's probably not the kind of thing you want to measure, because we might class that as what's called vanity metrics. But there's again, it all has a kind of it all has a usage. So I think you kind of, when you're asking that question, you need to kind of almost kind of, we always push that back onto a client and say, well, what is it you want to measure? What does success look like? So there's a bit of kind of the work that the client needs to do, or recruiters need to have a think about, what is it that's successful? So again, if you're a recruiter, if you're a small recruiter, and you don't need huge amounts of clients, maybe you need 1 a month or something like that, and that will keep you going. Can we help you get to 2 a month and double your revenue? That's the kind of thing that we want to kind of, we can talk about. And if that's the goal, then that's actually easier than necessarily if you've got 50 clients coming in a month, you want to, that we go to kind of 250. That's when it gets really kind of difficult. But having that kind of thought process is right. What is it you want to get from your marketing, and how does that align with your kind of business goals? So that's the kind of thing that we always trying to kind of get people to think about. It's not that we can't ever achieve it, but you need to have a think about it as well. One of the things we always try to do is aligning your kind of your marketing with what your business is trying to do, and not have them as two separate things. We always talk about the kind of sales and marketing, or sales ampersand marketing, and how you think about it together. The two kind of go in hand in hand. And so think, right, what is it? What's the sales targets? How does the marketing kind of help you meet those kinds of sales targets? So in a kind of rambling, kind of sprawling way, that's what we would kind of always kind of ask people to do. So and it's a bit like how long is a piece of string? We can never give a one definite answer, but it is right. What does success look like? You're on mute.
Excuse me. I think that realization hit me when we were doing last summer. We were doing some research into our competitors, because LinkedIn does benchmark you against your competitors, doesn't it? You can see, well, what does good look like, and where were we in comparison to other companies similar to us? And there was one that really stood out, and we were like, wow, okay, that's what success looks like. I'm not going to name and shame. But when we then took the next step and looked at, that's great, they've got this many, and I won't say because it will give it away, this many followers on their LinkedIn page. And then we looked, and their posts were getting 1 like, 4 likes, 1 comment.
Yeah.
And I'm like, those tens of thousands of people, what is going on there? So you're right. It's vanity, isn't it? If they're not engaged,
there's quality over quantity as well, as with especially with things like kind of the amount of followers you're getting. It's fine. You can have hundreds of thousands of followers, but what is it you want those people to do? How is it you want them to engage with your business? And if it's just followers, well, you can hack the system. And if you start on LinkedIn as an example, if you're paying for job adverts, you're pretty much, when someone applies, they're pretty much forced to kind of follow your company page. So you can quite easily increase your followers that way. But there's all kinds of tools, on these things to re-engage and engage with your kind of those people who are following you, and that's the thing you want to go for. So I bet you, even though you don't have as many, but you've got way more engaged followers, which is worth their weight in gold, as opposed to having as many as your competitors. So that's always the kind of what we would kind of aim for, is it's quality over quantity. Definitely would agree with that one. Right, what's coming up next? Question 3 is coming up next with a few votes. Those of you that have just joined us, you get to vote on the questions if you can't be with us for the whole 45 minutes and push it up the list. So question 3 then, I'm coming to you, Claire. I've had a few friends that have been in this situation since just before Christmas, but yeah, when we get tragedy after crisis, so there was something major happened, and then there was something even worse. So I mean, obviously you've got the definitions for the both, but what coping mechanisms can we share to help others? And I've debated whether to put this in, because I know this is also personal for you as well, isn't it?
It is. And I went through a stage where I was having tragedy after tragedy after tragedy, and it does really affect your emotions. And unless you've been in a situation, often you don't understand the impact of that. So I read this question. I thought, wow, well, for one person, what is a tragedy? So for one person, a tragedy is going to be very different for the next person. So for one person, a tragedy in their eyes might be that they didn't place someone. For somebody else, a tragedy is that, something pretty major, somebody's died. That is a tragedy. It is a tragedy. And then we've got crisis. What is crisis? What does it mean to you? So I think we've got to put it into perspective. If we've got people on our team, or if we've got clients or candidates who come to us and they've said, I'm having a really hard time, I've had a crisis situation, ask them to define what is the crisis. What does it actually mean on a scale of 0 to 10? How big is it? Now, we've also don't want to judge people on this situation, because, we've got to really fully understand that, some people, some things that we might think are quite small and aren't really a crisis, for somebody else, it could be quite big. So we don't want to judge them. And something that I do keep sharing in the mental health first aid, and when I'm managing mental health for managers, is that we can't fix people, we can support them. So how are we actually going to support them through this? So it's really listening with empathy. So listening with empathy isn't sort of sharing the emotion with them. It's being aware of the emotion, not getting too involved, not getting too deep, but being empathetic and getting them to realize that you are there for them.
Okay. So is that more, rather than saying, I know how you feel, that's more sympathy, isn't it? It's more, I can see this is really upsetting you.
Definitely. And there's a fantastic YouTube, Brené Brown, Sympathy versus Empathy. So look up Brené Brown, Sympathy versus Empathy, because it's absolutely amazing. And I was just going to get onto that. Angela and I always think on the same wavelength, don't we, Angela? So I was getting onto that. And it's a situation. So I'm going to give the example of when my dad died, I had certain people say things to me. I know how you feel because my dad's died. Well, yeah, your dad's died, but we had a very different relationship, my dad and your dad, and me with my dad and you with your dad. So even if you've had the same situation, and I hear this a lot with divorce, splitting up relationships, etc. Even if you've been through a divorce or had a split relationship, you don't get this person's situation. So, and we don't know, for some people, divorce is a relief. For other people, it's a real crisis. So we don't want to make any assumptions. So it's a difficult one, and that's why mental health conversations are so difficult. But if we can keep tuning into, I'm supporting them, I'm not fixing them, I'm listening to them, and I'm just letting them know that I am here for them. And for some people, a crisis, it can last for a long, long time. The triggers can be there.
Yeah, and even, I mean, I'm really seeing what you're saying here, and everyone experiences things differently, don't they? But actually, as an individual, I experience things differently depending on how tired I am, depending on how much work I've got on. Something that wouldn't affect me in any way, shape, or form, a mini thing, can have a huge effect on me at another time.
Can I tell you my mother's Australian saying on that? I love this saying. She used to always say, why did it have to happen to me the day my skirt was too tight? Some days it's just the day that everything's going wrong. So it's a situation, and we've got to show that we care in those situations too. That, I was really emotional last Friday because of something that happened, and now I think about it and I think, why was I so emotional about that? And it's just because I had so many pressures coming to me from all angles, and it's tricky. Life is tricky, and I think that question is really, really pertinent. What is a crisis for this person? What is a tragedy? Because I know in my 20s, I thought things were tragedies and a crisis, and because of my experience, actually they weren't.
They were at the time. That's the whole thing, isn't it? That was the worst that had happened at that point.
They were.
Sorry, guys.
So we're learning all the time.
So
we're learning all the time. Yeah,
unfortunately, what you think was bad then. You wait. No, let's be positive, right? Well, that links me to Lauren, actually, because you talked there about last Friday and things affecting you, and you're thinking, well, why was that? I think what Lauren obviously does, and certainly from me experiencing the menopause, it can have a totally different reaction you can get from me, dependent on those hormone levels and whether I forgot to stick my patch on and things like that. It could be as simple as that, to pick up from there. So I think that was the next question that was coming up, actually. It's question 2 has been voted on there. Yeah. How do I get everyone to be truly menopause inclusive? So if you want to reference what Claire said as well, that's fine. But if you want to just dive in, Lauren, away you go.
Yeah, I think, to get anyone to be truly inclusive with anything is a task and a half, right? There are so many topics, from a diversity, inclusion, belonging, equity, well-being, HR perspective. There's just so much that we have to do. But the reality is, with some topics, they're just really poorly understood and they affect everybody. So whether you're going to go through menopause yourself or you're going through it, 51% of the population are going to go through this, and 100% of the population are going to be impacted, because you're going to live with, work with, or socialize with somebody going through this. And it's not a one-day event. So we have to learn about menopause, because women and everyone else, transgender, non-binary and gender questioning colleagues who go through menopause, are working longer and later into life and holding down more senior roles now than ever before, and juggling looking after elderly relatives, looking after families. And all of this without the community support that we had in previous generations. So our stress levels are higher. And the point that Claire made about, what would tip someone over the edge could be really tiny for one person, but really huge for the next person. The reality is, our stress levels is very rarely the big things that tip us over. It's when there's just cumulatively too much stress. So when you add menopause into the mix and our stress load just gets overloaded, and we're not offloading that and allowing that to come out, and we don't have an off switch or a self-care switch, then we can be in the road for trouble. So creating menopause inclusivity at home, work and socially is really important. The kind of things that we do is we encourage people to attend our free 3-day course, because anyone can dip into that, and you can pick up top tips entirely free. We run it every second month throughout the year. And that's because I left my job thinking early onset dementia in my early 40s, and I don't want anyone to go through what I went through. I didn't know that I'd gone through menopause. But it's about talking to your people, asking your people, what do they want to see? There's no point in working with someone like myself and just having imposed on them fixed strategies or certain policies. Speak to your employees, survey them, ask them, what do they want and need? What is it that would be most helpful and beneficial to them to complement what you already have in place? So do you have existing HR or wellbeing or D&I policies that actually already cover menopause, and you just need to bring some communication around that? Do you have existing trainings that you can add menopause into? But perhaps you want to think about training menopause champions or having a menopause coach on board as well, because the business case is really, really super strong to becoming menopause, not just menopause supportive and aware, and really savvy, but making sure you've got practical mechanisms in place. So one of the key things I'd love to invite anyone that's interested in this topic to take away and to think about doing today is, if you are thinking about this journey, go and check out your employee assistance program. If you've got one, go and check out your private medical, if you've got that. And if you work with external or internal occupational health, go and ask them if they've done menopause awareness training. Because often these people who are the very essence of those that should be supporting us haven't had this additional training. So you can do all the awareness up front, which is great. But if you don't make sure the signposting is actually educated, providing effective support, we could be taking people who are really struggling, suffering in silence sometimes, and needing that extra support, and signposting to somewhere where they're not going to get the right help and support. So I would just say, inclusivity is about asking your people what they want, reflecting on that, engaging with someone like myself to be able to make sense of that, integrate it into your existing fabric. Don't just add on additional layers. Don't make it a tick box exercise. Think about your entire employee journey, from job design, person spec, all the way through to the recruitment process, onboarding and beyond, and make sure that you're weaving that into everything that you do. So hopefully that'll be a little bit helpful.
Definitely. And while I'm sitting here, I'm thinking, you're right. Sometimes we go in with a sledgehammer on these things, don't we? Or with too little. And here we go. Here's a good example of that. Do we just need a little fan? Or do we actually need a great big one that's going to blow right behind us to do it from there? But yeah, there's options, isn't there? to pick those up. And unless you ask, you might give the wrong one, and it's not what they need. And therefore, I think those open discussions, and this brings me back to Claire's. If we could get a few links in there, Lauren has done us a brilliant, over the times that she's been with us, we've got the Menopause and Your Business course that is free for everyone. Loads of resources in there and information to help you. It does link to your 3-day free, that's hard to say, session. So we'll get that in there as well. Oh, there we go. They're already in there. Lovely. But also Claire's How to Have Difficult Conversations, because there will be some people that would really struggle to open up. And I'm hoping this last 2 years or so has made it so much easier for everyone to actually have the discussion. But if you're not, then yeah, there's a workout for you from the gym to start having those discussions. Find someone that will champion it within the business. That could be anyone, male, female, young, old, doesn't matter. But who actually is willing to have the conversations in the first place to get the ball rolling. But thank you for that, and lots of resources, as we said, and we've got Brené Brown's in there as well around those discussions. The next one, they're obviously interested. So I'm coming back to you, Lauren, because the next one is what's happening on the political front to help businesses at the moment in relation to menopause. So the last time I saw you was October, and it was Menopause Week, World Menopause Day, and there was lots of positive things that was happening, especially with our government. We were leading the way in the world with things. So, okay, give us a little update of what's going on and what we should be aware of.
So for those that aren't completely up to date with this, there was a big survey done to explore what additional help and support we needed in the workplace, done by the government. We had about 2,000 respondents, which was great. Not massively representative of the country, but we'll park that for now. But the types of recommendations that came forward were making menopause a protected characteristic under the Equality Act, free prescription charges for HRT in England to match up with the rest of the country, or devolved nations, and a whole bunch of other recommendations that the government has very smartly batted away, lots of them. So I actually just produced a little paper on this. So if anyone wants a copy, they're welcome to it for free. Basically, what is coming out now is that there is a massive energy behind government to move menopause and make it mainstream. We've got a bunch of parliamentarians who are really vocal, really talented, and really making sure that this is not dropped. But it's fascinating because at the same time, the key personnel who should be present for these very pertinent debates are sometimes not present when these debates are going on. And worse than that, they're actually fairly trying to make this non-political, but they're fairly condescending about women and menopause, even though they are women themselves. So it's very fascinating. We have got a real kind of, if you imagine a ball of energy, it's kind of like there's one side pushing one way and the other side's pushing the other way. But we are seeing changes. So we now have an annual prescription charge in England for HRT. We have a women's menopause champion appointed, who is actually a full-time member of staff at Adecco, and it's a part-time voluntary position. So I'm not entirely sure how a senior person in a large organization is going to be able to make a massive sway and shift. But the reality is we do have a menopause champion now in post. So it's a massive step in the right direction. We also have Dame Professor Leslie Regan, who was appointed a couple of years ago as a Women's Health Ambassador. So women's health has generally not been well studied, well researched, or well supported ever, anywhere in the world. So we are taking the right steps in the right direction, and there is a lot of noise in this space. The reality is we still need to see some very practical action, but the government is basically pushing it back to employers and saying, employers, you need to be doing this. And they're using employers who are doing things well already as the case studies for other people. So we're on the edge of some significant change. And if we have a change in regime in the next election, then Labour have already promised that they will make some significant changes when it comes to menopause. So this is a bit like race was, a bit like equal rights, where, you know, going back several decades, not that many decades actually. It takes time to get these things to get pushed through, but we've seen significant moves in the right direction. We just need that little bit more energy to get them over the line, and I don't think we're too far off. I think that there are so many conflicting priorities for the government at the moment, and this is one that we just need to keep up that momentum, keep showing up, keep going up to Parliament, keep giving our evidence, keep pushing the conversation forward. And the other thing that's happening, which is another sign that we are pushing ahead with this, is I got invited to join the British Standards Institute last year as a committee member. So there's no financial benefit to me with this at all. So I've supported their menstruation and menopause standard, which we're actually launching. I think I'm speaking in Barcelona in June and London in July to launch the new BSI standard for menstruation and menopause, which for the first time ever, they're going to make free to employers for the first year. So it's another free resource for people to be able to look at. I think when you start looking at the big organizations like that are those that many employers will go to for their kite marks or their training and different things, that it's a really good sign that we are moving in the right direction.
Well, if we've got BSI behind it, and I'm so proud that it's a woman from the recruitment industry that's the champion and pushing that forward. You've got Davina McCall that's done a lot with the exposure, and you've got Carol Vorderman, haven't you, really working hard in those committees and talking to government and pushing. So I can definitely see the movement. Could just do with the Minister for Women and Equality to back it up and actually go to the meetings would be helpful. But that's lovely, really positive, great things happening. It's still moving forwards. And like you say, yeah, it takes time when you're moving the government wheels, but at least it's happening. That's brilliant. Thank you. Okay, question 4 is the next one up. Everyone's talking Chat GPT this month. Okay, that's us a lot as well. We've obviously been pushing that, but once we've got involved in it, we can see it's blown up ridiculously these last few weeks. So how can recruiters utilise it effectively? So let's go to James, get you back in the conversation.
Thank you very much. So we talked about this yesterday on the daily workout, didn't we? We did a bit of this. So where I asked Chat GPT, what are the trends in talent attraction? And it gave me back a kind of a list of the top 10 trends that it thought that it would be involved with over the next kind of 10, however many years, which was interesting. So I think, it's going to be one of these things that will have a pretty profound change, I think, right? Once it starts getting integrated into all kinds of other systems, and it's not just a kind of a standalone kind of site where you go and ask it to write you a LinkedIn post or you write a blog or that kind of thing. I think it's going to be pretty powerful when it's going to be able to kind of like, I think it's, I think one of the kind of the things I've seen of it so far, and I know Microsoft rolls out, it's like an advanced version of the little paperclip that you used to see in in your Word document. So they're new. Exactly. The one that was really annoying, the little paperclip that was really annoying. So the more advanced version of that now is basically ChatGPT sitting in 365, which will probably be able to kind of schedule meetings for you, kind of finish off your emails for you, rewrite your emails for you, write an email for you in the first place, and book meeting, and then call that, and basically become like a kind of an AI assistant, more so than kind of Cortana was, which is their old kind of version of that kind of thing. And so that's where it will become kind of start to be useful from a business perspective. From recruitment, then the next step is kind of integrating that into the tools that we already have around our CRM and maybe even kind of back office systems, the kind of things that where again, if anybody's watching, where there's probably their roles are probably quite likely to be replaced by a robot, because it's kind of almost those kind of repetitive style kind of roles, right? So those are the things where you'll be able to just kind of, it will know that you need that doing, and it will do it just in the background. Reports running, creating reports, and those kind of things, I think, are one of the things you'll first start to see it in. From a recruitment marketing perspective, it'll do exactly the same. Okay, as well. And one of the things that I think we found was quite kind of what it came up with yesterday when we spoke about this is that kind of analysis and trends analysis of the markets, right? Bringing all this kind of data that we've kind of got either in our own databases or other databases, and bringing this together and actually making it kind of usable, readable, and kind of functional for businesses, instead of being quite a manual job that it can be in a minute. So those are the things I think that it will start to touch on, actually probably within the next year. In 5 years' time, I mean, it will probably do the majority of a recruiter's job for them. Basically, I think that's kind of where it's kind of going to be heading.
Well, That was the one thing that I was really positive about. Yes, we've done AI week in the daily workout. So if we can get the link to James's one yesterday in there, that would be great. And Chat GPT themselves were saying it won't do the job of a recruiter. You still need a recruiter to then put the human element in and to do the questioning and to identify the culture and the match properly. But if we could get, I don't know, 50% of the admin that a recruiter has to do, because it's 10 jobs in one, and utilize that. And we had Gavin McNorth on Tuesday, whose company Liquid Palladium purports that it can take away 25% of all those repetitive tasks. So we're already on our way to it anyway, with companies that have been around for a little while. But it's just so exciting. Talking to some people at the Recruitment Expo this week, and they were saying, they can put Chat GPT onto the website. They can you can drag and drop a job onto the website. You can ask ChatGPT to write you a blog around that title of that job, and it will actually suggest relevant things. So you can draw people to read what you're writing, and then you can have the jobs, and it will pick out the jobs that are relevant to
I would be slightly cautious of that kind of stuff, right? From my experience of ChatGPT is that it's not particularly the most engaging of content and copy that it ever writes. And maybe that's what you want, right? Maybe you want boring content, but it definitely kind of, I think it's kind of this, because it's not kind of particularly targeted. It goes like, give me everything, and then I'll put everything into one article. So I think you need to be, as it gets better, it will kind of understand, and as it gets to know what you want, it will kind of understand that. But as for
I'm trying to run before I can walk, aren't I?
Yeah, I think there's that kind of, but that I mean, and you know, it is a potential issue as a marketeer for the copywriting, which is a lot of the kind of things we do. So it has an issue, and it probably will replace that at some point, but it just isn't there yet. And I tell anyone who's kind of will listen, and even my team, that fine, you can use it, but it's a starting point, not an end point, right? That's how you want to kind of think of it at the minute, because it just isn't there yet.
Yeah, and Catherine on our daily workout this morning was suggesting the more detail you can give it, the more specifics, then the better it's going to be. Otherwise, it is going to be very generic, and it's going to be the same as everyone else is writing, which is what we definitely don't want, because we've been there before. So we really utilize it to make sure that it's giving you that starting point. And sometimes that's what I need as I don't consider myself that creative.
Inspiration, right? That's what you want.
Exactly. Give me a few ideas and then I'm off.
Yeah.
I can do it. It's just that spark to start with.
The other thing that's worth just considering before we kind of move on is over kind of plagiarism and copyrights. This still hasn't been kind of really settled, you know, because it's using other people's work for something to give you something new. So where does that all kind of sit in it? That becomes more pertinent when you're looking at how it creates imagery as well. So it's going to be taking from other people. So if you want, like, give me an image in the style of Monet, right? Okay, that's fine. But you want to start something in the style of David Hockney, who's still alive and who has the copyright. You know, where does this sit? There's some grey areas. I think in the next couple of years, this will be one of these things that ends up getting regulated. I think that's where it's going to end up going, and you'll see it kind of become a bit more kind of constrained, maybe, or kind of only for certain uses and things like that. That's my kind of feeling.
I think this is going to be either Declan Bradley or Simon Block, our legal people that help us in the gym here. I think maybe in 6 months' time, we'll book them again for Ask the Coach and see, so what's happened so far? And let's get some updates as to where people have run astray with it. Claire, you wanted to add something?
Well, I did, because I watched yours. Thank you, James. That was brilliant on Chat GPT. Everyone's talking about it, and it was a fantastic week to have it for the daily workout. So well done, Angela. But Vanessa, and I've forgotten the guest's name on Monday, they said the same thing. Wendy, that's right. And they said, with regards to plagiarism, just do a plagiarism test. And I really loved your advice, James, and they backed it up as well, is that it's a starting point. Add in your own examples. And I've used it to not write blogs, but to sort of think about training material. And I've thought, I need an example of somebody who did this. So I put in, give me an example of a manager who would have done this. They gave me, and I thought, oh, that reminds me of so-and-so. And then I added my extra things in. So it's a really good reminding starting point to get you going, but it's adding in your own personal things as well. I think that's absolutely brilliant. brilliant.
So
advice.
hopefully it will get rid of some procrastination, won't it? Because a lot of the time you put things up, it's like, where do I start? Where do I start with this? It's too big.
Yeah.
Chat GPT, go on, get me started. Let me just start from there.
And I've even reworded my question about 5 different times, and it comes up with different things as well.
Yeah.
So one of them was giving an example of a manager who is good at time management, for example. Gives me 5, and I think I'm not happy with that. Give me another 5. Then give me another 5. Then give me another 5, and then it sort of gets you. It just keep asking.
And then it comes back and says, Claire, are you wasting time here?
But you know what I mean? If you're not happy with the answer, just reword the question and reword the question and reword the question. It's it is a great tool. It's an absolutely brilliant tool. And the plagiarism tests, I think that's a brilliant bit of advice that we're doing.
Definitely need that, don't we?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, I'm just going to take a break here. Paul Nightingale on LinkedIn Live. Hello. Sorry, I didn't say hello earlier as I've come over. So if you're on LinkedIn Live, you can either come join us here in Crowdcast, or Charlotte's monitoring that over there. So do say hello. We're a friendly bunch, but this is your opportunity now. We're moving on to the last question. So if you have got a question that you would like to ask the coaches, whether it's on mental health and well-being, on marketing, on recruitment generally, or menopause, then please do, or menstruation and menopause, please do get that in the chat and we'll pick it up from there. Okay. Yes, what's Charlotte's point? I agree, Claire. Use it as a skeleton and then spruce it up with your own work. I think this will save people a lot of time. Yes, that's brilliant. We love stuff that's going to save us time, don't we? Fantastic. Okay, so our next question then, Claire. How can communicate? Oh, actually, I think everyone can have an impact on this, but let's start with Claire. How can communication affect our mental health and well-being? There's a nice big topic for you.
It's huge. It's an absolutely huge topic. So I've been asked this question a lot by clients, and it's just the way we come across. Lauren used the word inclusivity earlier. Our communication can actually result in us feeling like we're not belonging in an organization, and we don't belong. And if we feel like we don't belong, or there's a culture of that, we do feel lonely, and it really affects our mental health. Loneliness, as I've said many a time, loneliness is of more detriment to our health than actually smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It's really detrimental. So we want to be self-aware. We want to think about how do we come across to our colleagues, if we're a manager, to our team, to our clients, to our candidates, and think about, I've been talking a lot to my clients lately about our micro-messaging. So micro-messages are divided into microaggressions and micro-affirmations. And are we actually portraying more microaggressions than affirmations? We actually do in a whole day, there's between 2,000 and 4,000 micro-messages in our conversations. That's 50 in a 10-minute conversation. And they're little things like, you know, I remember my MD coming in, looking at the board, the targets board, and sitting there going, and we had smashed our targets. And what's that actually telling us? How is it coming across? It was so demotivating. And that was just from a couple of seconds, her body language, and it said so much. So it's thinking about, how do we come across? What do we say? And I trained this to, I did a webinar actually for a big financial services company last week. And the guy who organized it, he was just coming along because he had organized it. He said, Claire, I learned so much about myself. I am so sarcastic. And I did not click until you were talking about micro messages. I'm sarcastic with my son. That's why I wind him up. I'm sarcastic because I think it's funny. And actually, it's not very funny. So it's really being self-aware, because it can affect other people with their mental health, and micros become macros. And if you think about ever saying, I don't know what it is about that person, it's never something big, but it's just those little things that they keep saying. So Angela, you're about to say something. Sorry about that.
Well, yeah, I'm sitting here and I know I'm very visual with my face, so you can read exactly what's going on with me, with my face. But I think the platforms that we use, whether Crowdcast, Zoom, Teams, whatever, we're here, aren't we? You're not usually sort of that focused on someone's face. So I think things that potentially would have got lost before are probably having even more of an impact now. And certainly when I'm training and I've got a team of people in front of me and I can see someone that that reaction, if I was in a classroom, I might have missed it. But I think we're probably more hyper aware now as well.
Yeah, definitely. So I do think I've just given you an example of micro messaging, but every single bit of communication. Think about our emails we write. So somebody in the recruitment industry years ago that I trained, it was quite funny. I was petrified of this woman. I had never met her because the whole company kept saying she's the scariest woman in the company. And I used to say, well, what does she do? Oh, well, we've never met her. Nobody had met her. And I eventually met her and we were talking about emails and how, emails can portray a message that you didn't mean to portray, and gave examples of capital letters, etc. She was in accounts. She was in a really, really stressful role where she had to get money in and she had to get answers now. So she used to put everything in capitals. I want this now. She didn't realize how she came across. And when we talked about it, she went, that's why everybody hates me. I said, what are you talking about? And bless her, I met her 2 weeks later and she said, everybody's doing what I asked now, Claire. I've just changed my style of email. So it's back to self-awareness. If we're not aware of the way we come across and we don't adapt to people, our communication can really cause stress for a lot of people.
I had that once with a client of mine, to the point where I couldn't get any temporary workers to go and work with him anymore. We've literally, over the course of about 6 months, gone through our whole database. And everyone would go there once and wouldn't come back again. And so we started doing some digging, and it was a catering, think Gordon Ramsay. That gives you the indication of what they were like. So I had to go and have that difficult conversation in the end. I wish I'd had your course then. And tell him and share with him. And I had nothing to lose because I couldn't get anyone to work. And any new person, I got to the point I didn't want to put them in either because I knew I was throwing them into the lion's den. Exactly. But no idea. That's just me. And we didn't have the word banter to them, but I'm just having a laugh. And they're like, no, you're treating people terribly. You're shouting, you're screaming, you're swearing, and they just don't get that anywhere else. They won't work for you. They want to work elsewhere. But he then became our biggest client on the catering side for a couple of years because once he knew, he didn't adjust it. So that's obviously one of the key things. What about from a marketing point of view then, James? We've got a couple of minutes. Communication then through marketing that actually potentially can have a negative impact on someone that's receiving that message. Have you got any examples of that? I haven't got any examples of that, but I am going to share you the examples of how terrible I am at communicating, because I get picked up on it all the time. But so on a call like this or face to face, I'm completely fine. However, on the email and on messaging, I have been told on numerous occasions that I come across quite blunt. And I have on numerous occasions being picked up at it and really quite offended people because can be quite blunt. But that is not me. That is just me kind of using these tools in what I think the way is that I don't need to write you an essay. I just need to kind of say yes, no, let's do that, and that's me. But apparently I need to be a much more kind of I need to kind of expand out, basically, just more kind of elaborate in how I meant to kind of construct my messages online. Because I mean, I've been kicked out. I've been pulled up by business when I used to work properly, but I've been pulled up because of how blunt I was in emails. And my staff now have on occasion said that I'm kind of quite blunt on messaging. But it's difficult for me to see it. That's the thing, because it's different for me to kind of manage my kind of and how that communication kind of works. But I know I am probably guilty of being a bit too. Well, great. You got that feedback for a start. I love the way you say when I used to work properly.
Yeah, proper job, not yeah.
I know what you mean with emails. I'm like, here's information, and I have to go back and add in at the beginning. and the niceties, because otherwise all it is 2 lines saying, right, this is what you want.
Exactly.
And there are people like you and me, then once you get to know that, that's great, I can do that with them. But majority of the time people are like, oh, that's a bit odd.
I mean, it's me should be measuring my communications, not I should, it's not the other way around, right? I shouldn't necessarily be offending people because I'm kind of because I couldn't be bothered to write hi, how are you right at the start or something like that. And it's not because I generally don't want to say hi, how are you, but it's barely because I just want to kind of
task.
Yeah.
You're task oriented.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. When we're task orientated, we're concentrating on the task, not thinking about the people. So we've got to think, do I adapt then to somebody who is people orientated?
Yeah.
Definitely.
We have ended up pushing quite a few courses today. We don't usually, but it's just how the discussion goes. So I can see that's just popped up as well, Understanding Disprofiling, which is Kate O'Neill's course around the 4 different personality types and how you can communicate with them and how it makes a difference. So yeah, perfect for what we're talking about here. That does make sense. And again, then opening up those conversations and being able to get people on board. We've got to see it from their point of view, haven't we? We're the ones that have to change. And that's why recruiters, it does impact us so much, because our communication is really quite heightened. And if we're getting that wrong, it's an awful job, really. So you need to work on your communication skills so that you're making people feel good, whether that's clients, candidates, colleagues, your boss, whoever. You've got all of these people that are looking to you to help and to support them in some way, shape and form. And if your communication skills aren't adapting to those people, then yeah, you can come unstuck a little bit in recruitment. And then that does really impact your mental health as well, because it's a tough job. And if it's not going well, then that's not great either. Within 30 seconds. That wasn't bad. Thank you for you joining us again. It is lovely when we get people coming back because, yeah, we get so much information out of you, which is fantastic. All these resources will go into the course, all the links and everything. So click on the green button, join us in the gym. You get, there's 6 free courses. There'll be 7 within a week or so to help you in your role, whether you're in-house or agency, recruitment or marketing. There's a lot there for you. So do come and join us. And we'll see you back again in 2 weeks' time, although 2 weeks minus 1 day. It's the Thursday that week because it's Good Friday. So we'll be on Thursday the 6th. Fantastic. Thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend. Hope the sun is shining.
Thank you.
See you all soon. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.